Okay, so I'm getting ready to add a breadboard into this 6-foot table. First thing I try to do is I try to make sure that I have one end that is actually square so that I can pull a straight line from this side to that end. What I do next is I use my drywall square to mark off a straight line. So I know that this side right here is square. So what I'm going to do is just take my straight line and mark it all the way down. This is simulated because I already cut it, but I take my track saw and I pretty much cut down that straight line just to make sure that this side right here is flat, meaning it's straight, plumb. Just cut it all the way off. Now that I know that the tabletop is square and plumb, this spacing here is because of the breadboard. What I would do is I set up my track saw on this side and I will cut right down this seam here to make sure everything butts up. I'll show you in a second. So as you can see, with one pass to the track saw, that little gap in between the breadboard and the actual table is going away. It's getting smaller. So one more pass with the track saw will be perfect. Okay, I did one more pass with the track saw, and I'm gonna butt it together. It should be a good fit now. Okay, so once I put the dominoes in the end and pull it tight, this will be seamless. You don't need a track saw to achieve this. I use a AccuCut by Craig for a long time. You can also build a simple circular saw jig to achieve this. So whatever gets the job done, and you'll be able to achieve this the same way. Next thing I do is I take my square and I mark off 2 inches from the end. This is for domino placement, and this will prevent the end from bowing. And then I equally space my dominoes all the way down, especially the one right here in the middle. I got my end placement tip from my boy Joe over at CJD Design. I use 12 millimeter by 100 dominoes. They pretty much work well for me. I could be using 14 by 140s, but this is where I pretty much place my dominoes. You don't need dominoes to secure the breadboard ends. You can use a simple jig like this one here, which is a dowel jig. Has a hole in the end. You just line it up with the line here, and you just drill a straight line through, and you can secure your breadboard ends the same way. This is a 3/8 inch dowel jig. You could probably go something larger, say for instance like a 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4 of an inch, whichever one that you get your hands on to make your breadboard ends for your, to drill your holes for your dowels. Okay, I'm back now that I got my kids off to school. Start drilling my holes for my dominoes. All right, I got my Festool domino here. I got my 12 millimeter bit in there, and I gotta set my depth on 50. So for the table side, I set the table side, the holes that go on the table side, I set my drill on the tight setting so that the dominoes will be just nice and snug in there on the table side. On the breadboard inside, the only hole that gets the tight setting is the one right here in the middle. Everything else will be on loose to allow for expansion and contraction. Breadboard is all in, nice and tight. On to the next side.